Hello. I'm on just a few minutes early, so if you've already joined me, then thank you. I'm really glad you're here if you've already joined me. And I'm only going to wait 2 more minutes, and then I'm going to get started with an introduction to Chapter 3 of Onward. And if you're here, or when you join me, even if it's not live, it would be really lovely if in the comments you just share your name and where you are. It just makes me feel less alone in doing this otherwise somewhat slightly awkward thing. I'm trying to get used to it. It being talking into a screen, and I'm such a person to person, person in person. I'm not crazy about doing virtual learning or phone coaching. I'm getting more comfortable with it, but it's not my preference. I like to see people. I like to see their nonverbals. I like to be in the room with them. I like to hear the quiet things that people say. Anyway, now I'm just rambling, which can be kind of dangerous. Got 1 more minute left. And I'm sorry because I know that some of you are watching this after the live event, and I'm grateful for that. I really love seeing people's responses and reactions on Twitter or wherever in the comments. It's not just the affirmation, that's always nice, but it's also the information that I get about what is useful, what's helpful to you, because I am so committed to sharing these strategies for resilience, to getting these ideas, this content out there to you in a way that's useful, that you can use, so that we can improve, transform our schools, and meet the needs of kids. So, all that to say that I just really appreciate any feedback. And feedback can be... don't talk. Trying to be able to see the comments. Okay, I think I got them where I can see them now. Okay, it's time. It is 4 p.m. Pacific time. Welcome to this month's Onward live chat about Chapter 3, Tell Empowering Stories. Wow, I just said that, and then I had this moment where I was like, is that what the chapter is called? Oh, Tell Empowering Stories. It is. Okay, I gotta tell you, I wasn't gonna say this because I didn't think it was necessary, but I think it might be necessary. I have been sick for about almost 3 weeks, and now I have like the worst cold I've had in years, maybe about 3.5 years. I was trying to remember last time I got a cold. And, this is actually the first time in 3 days I've been out of bed. This is a big step for me. And in spite of the medication that's coursing through my blood and trying to open up my sinuses, I am still definitely feeling really spacey and out of it. But, no. And delete that but. I'm going to tell you all about and today. And is my new favorite word. I want someone to make a jingle for me, some kind of Schoolhouse Rock kind of jingle about and. And I don't even remember what I was saying. Well, okay. I'm really excited to share a little bit about this chapter, and I'm going to share 2 new strategies with you. My commitment to this content and fascination with it means that I'm just constantly growing and thinking, and I'm actually trying out all the strategies this year on the calendar cycle that I imagine them being used in. So this month I've really been testing out the tools for engaging with storytelling, and I've got 2 new strategies that I want to add. This chapter is all about how you interpret or make sense of events, and how in that moment of interpretation, you can either increase or decrease your resilience, because you get to decide what story you tell about whatever happens. And that is a lot of power. So as a new teacher, in the beginning part of the year, I remember saying to myself far too often, this is so hard. I'm never going to make it through this year. I can't do this. Why did I become a teacher? This is so hard. So that was a story I told myself about what was happening. And it was not an empowering story. Like, really, ultimately, it didn't help me feel any better. It didn't help me manage the challenges that I was facing. You can read more about that story in Onward in chapter 3, but that's just an example of what it is to tell a story. So I want to actually pause right now, and I want to invite you to engage in an exercise. And I want you to think about last school year. See if you can identify the story that you've been telling yourself, either consciously or unconsciously, about it. What have you told yourself, or even what have you told others about last year? Just take a moment to think about that and see if you can articulate that story. Now, even as you reflect, you might start noticing that you're having multiple stories coming to mind. You're aware of layers of narrative. The first thing to do for this resilience building habit is become aware of the stories that you tell. Stories are really powerful. They shape our world. They shape how we see things, how we remember things, how we feel. They shape, or they definitely contribute to our emotional states all the time, to our moods. So you've got to be aware of what you're telling yourself. And so in the next day or two, hold on, I want to encourage you, this is an activity, an assignment to do. I want to encourage you to see if you can identify the meaning that you're making of events. I imagine that many of you are just back to work, or maybe just going back to work now. And so keep this lens as you go to these first staff meetings, as you meet new colleagues, as you see students or other people you work with. What's the story you're telling? What do you walk away thinking? What kind of conclusions are you coming to? So you meet a new person and you walk away thinking, okay, she's going to be a handful to work with. That's a story. That's a conclusion you've come to. And then the question is, what's the impact of that? Right or wrong, empowering or not empowering, like what's the impact? So I really struggled when I wrote this chapter. I'll tell you a little behind the scenes conflict that I had. So I really thought about, so I've titled it Tell Empowering Stories, but really, I'm not sure if they need to be empowering. I mean, empowerment is good. It's important, yes. But it's about being aware of the stories you're telling and then being able to choose, like, is that a story I want to tell or not? Does that one serve me? What's the impact of that? Maybe without judgment, I guess, because empowering connotes judgment. So I don't necessarily think that you need to sort through all your stories every day and make sure they're all empowering. Those are helpful. But this is really about first becoming aware of the stories you tell, becoming aware of the impact. So this leads to my first new strategy. I'm kind of daunted by this. As I said, because I'm always like learning more about this, trying it out, testing these strategies out, thinking more deeply. I'm just not done with thinking about this. Like, I don't know what'll happen next. But anyway, and so I have a new insight and perhaps a new strategy to offer that I've just learned this last week or two. Um, and that strategy is basically don't tell stories. Sometimes you don't need to tell a story. So it was reflecting on how even the way I set up this chapter, as I was just alluding to, is sort of this false binary, because I said, that when you tell a story, you can either increase or decrease your resilience. But I feel like the fact that I stated it like that is like a false binary. It's not either or. And maybe there's some truth in that. It's like, yeah, stories can either, maybe it's a tiny fraction of an increase or decrease. But in other ways it isn't, because here's the insight I've had. You can also choose not to tell a story. Okay, that's a choice you have. Don't tell a story. Things happen, and you don't have to make meaning or interpret it or come to conclusions about every single thing that happens. I don't know if that if that allows you to have some freedom or empowerment, try that out. So, as I said, I've been sick for a few weeks, and I'm never sick. It's a really weird thing for me. Like, I might get sick for a few days, but I bounce back really fast. I seem to have a very resilient body. But last week, I played with some stories about me getting sick. Like, oh, I got sick because I took on too much this summer, because I took too much in. It was a really busy and intense summer, super intense. I know last time I did my YouTube live, I was in Johannesburg. But what I realized like yesterday is that story isn't really empowering to me. It didn't do anything for me. It didn't feel like it helped me feel better or increase my resilience. So now I'm choosing to just not tell a story, and I'm just saying I got sick. And that's it. I'll get better. I don't need a story about this. Not now. Things happen. Shit happens, right? People get sick. And actually that makes me feel a lot better. So again, there's something you do, and then there's what's the impact, and just tuning into that. What is the impact? All right, I've got another new strategy for you. I mean, I think it's in Onward, but not as explicitly as I've been experiencing it lately. And that is, wait, I think I just said this. See, this is the spaciness. Okay, that strategy is that and is the best word there is. And is my favorite word these days. Because and means you can tell multiple stories. And I want to give you permission to tell multiple stories. It doesn't have to be one story or the other. It doesn't have to be a definitive story. When you're telling your story, you also have permission to revise it, rewrite it, tell other stories. It's your story. You choose. And try using the word and a lot. So for example, last year was hard, and I worked my butt off. And I also learned a whole lot. And there were some beautiful moments. Or, I'm really sad I lost my job. And I'm cautiously excited about the new position I'm in. And I love my old job, and I'm sad. You can tell multiple stories. See what it feels like to use and. South Africa was fascinating and incredible, and I learned so much, and it was so hard and painful and brought up so much for me. That's how I've been playing with the word and. Try using and. All right. Before I sign off, I want to share one strategy for you that you may already use. It's in the book. It's in the workbook. But I know some people are watching who haven't yet dug into those texts, and I want to lure you in, as well as invite everybody else to comment on this strategy. So this strategy is intention setting. And those of you who know me know that I use this all the time. Use this in my workshops, talk about it, write about it. I've written about it in, I think, every book I've written. Intention setting is a routine that you can use, perhaps in the morning, before you go to work, before you go to a meeting, before you meet with a teacher, a parent, a colleague. And when you set an intention, you state a hope for yourself, a way that you want to be, It's not a goal because goals are kind of tight and they can be kind of, they can feel constricting. It's softer and more personal in intention setting. Um, and so an intention can sound like, today I want to be aware of the stories that I tell. Or my intention this year is to connect more deeply with colleagues. Or my intention in this meeting is to show up as a thoughtful listener. Or my intention this year is to experience joy in my work. That's what an intention sounds like. And what it does is it gives your mind a story to live into. So that's one of the reasons why it's so powerful. You're scripting a narrative before you experience the events. And what happens is that your mind starts looking for the data points that will support you fulfilling your intention. Because your mind actually wants to serve you. And so if you give it direction like that, tell it what your intention is, it will try to help you. It will work for you. So just now, do me a favor. Those of you who are watching now or later, even if it's later, would you let me know if you use intentions already? Would you make a comment in the comment section here in YouTube? Just share perhaps how intention setting helps you, just to see what other people say, to try to create a little bit more of a community here. Intention setting, it's really subtle. I mean, it takes less than 30 seconds, again, in the morning or before you go to a meeting, but it's really powerful. So that's my last strategy suggestion for you. I want to encourage you, perhaps as a next step, like right now, at the end of this video, to set an intention for yourself for this school year. Remember, this is your intention. It's personal. You don't have to share it with anybody. There's no rubrics. There's no tests. There's no judgment. It's yours. It can be helpful to post it somewhere where you can see it, whether that's on a Post-it note on your wall or in a computer to remind yourself. But try it out and see what happens. There's more about intention settings in Onward and in the workbook. And you know, I hesitate to say this because I'm afraid I'm going to say this with every chapter, but maybe not. But I do think that storytelling it's probably one of the top two or three most powerful strategies. I mean, sometimes I think it is the top one. Sometimes I think it's all about the interpretation you make. But then sometimes I also think it's about chapter 5, which is Be Here Now, and about being present. Because in order to become aware of the stories you're telling, you have to be in the present. You have to be mindful. And so they're deeply connected. But then in order to understand the interpretation that you make of stories, you need to know yourself and understand emotions. That's why these are all interconnected, these chapters, these habits, these strategies for cultivating resilience. I've been finding lately in my conversations with folks as they start going back to school that reminding people to stay grounded in their purpose, in their mission, in their vision, in the why they're doing this just helps to give you that extra boost for like, why do this? Why create intentions? Why take the time out to read this book and all of that? I mean, I really appreciate all the positive feedback I'm getting from it. I love that. It's always helpful to hear affirmations. I'm not going to lie to you. But, you know, things get busy, and my vision for this being a 12-month sort of curriculum, I know what's going to be happening in November when you're barely coming up for air. Stay grounded in your purpose and your why. Why are you doing this? Why go through the challenge of becoming aware of your emotions and dealing with all your inner shit, and becoming aware of your core beliefs? And excuse my language. If anybody's offended, I'm sorry. Stay connected to your why. All right, y'all. That's all I can manage today. I'll on a related note, I'm kind of proud of myself because I spent 3 days in bed and well, 2.5. I don't remember the last time I did that. I usually just push myself when I'm sick, try out different pharmaceuticals. I just mean like Dayquil, that kind of stuff. But I'm actually resting, and I am doing really hard thinking about things I've got coming up and wondering if I need to cancel stuff. It's hard for me. It's really hard to like stop and slow down and say no. But I'm staying grounded in my purpose and my mission and my vision and my why, and continuously trying to model resilience. And so taking care of myself and resting is, well, it should be the no-brainer one, right? All right. Happy back to school work, everybody. And again, your comments, your feedback is most useful. What's helpful? What do you want more of? How can I help you be more resilient this year? Thanks. Take care.